first we looked at the later version of Olam haYedidus, the one that Rabbi Wolbe included in an essay where he compares psychiatry and religion.
Mm-hmm.
So his introduction in part Bays of the religion side was an expanded version of Olam haYedidus. He spends a lot more time explaining each idea of Yedidus, of Achzarius, and because it was in contrast to psychiatry, he also got into the role of Midos and the role of the intellect in relation to Midos, conscious, subconscious, and what we were translating as superconscious thought, and how they related to our old friends, Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, I had posted a challenge a couple of hours ago. If you could see the haYedidus logo,
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
right? Trying to see if there's a way to share it. Do you see the WhatsApp chat on your screen, or did I share the screen of the app? Can you see the WhatsApp?
Well, not yet, but I'm looking at it on on my screen anyway. That's nice.
Okay.
You do need a better rendering.
Oh yes, that's why I said if anybody has artistic ability and time to kill. No, I mean it was great it was great when haYedidus started in 1992 and pixelate. I mean that was the level of pixelation of things on the web because your download speed was so much slower.
Mm-hmm.
But in any case, so there are three words: Da'as, Rachmim, and Tiferes, which
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Nathan Birnbaum had created for a group he was starting called Olam, which has nothing to do with Aliyah to Israel, although Nathan Birnbaum was one of the first Zionists. At this point in his life, he had moved on from secular Zionism and was a major functionary in the Aguda.
Wow.
Yeah. He was actually, I think, the one who designed the Israeli flag, the Zionist flag, which became the Israeli flag. But in any case, so he started this group called Ha'olim, and they stood for Da'as, Rachmim, and Tiferes, which he defined as intimate knowledge of God, compassion toward other people, and a internal splendor and harmony. So when Rabbi Bechhofer convinced me that this should be our motto as well, I took the motto and I colored it because blue is Rabbi Hirsch's color for things related to the neshama and heaven and God, and therefore, if that is his intimate knowledge of God, I did that in blue. Rachamim, compassion toward other people. Well, that I did in red because really for personal reasons, because I'm convinced that the Shulchan parallels the Shulchan, and the showbread and the people being kind to people is what you do in this world, right? That thing that I tried arguing on the role of the various kalim. And Tiferes I did in green because green is growth, and if I would have done it in yellow, there'd be no contrast. So that was sort of no. And the truth is, the word yarok spans all of yellow and green.
Mm-hmm.
Hebrew didn't yet have separate words for the two of them. So that was the reason for the haYedidus logo, which also gives you an idea of how long I've been playing with these ideas, because I was already considering them central enough to use them in branding some, I don't know, 25, 30 years ago. So anyway, so then we had this, then we went to Olam haYedidus, but we skipped the first section because it was just what we had covered before, but in less detail. And we went straight to his discussion of various mitzvos from this perspective of Yedidus. So last week we looked at 3 mitzvos that were bein Adam Lamakom, and they were all called osos. except by people who call them otot. Right, there was bris milah, Shabbos, and tefillin. These are the three mitzvahs that are called osos in Torah. There are other mitzvahs that are called osos. For example, tzitzis, but they're not actually explicitly it's not the Torah that calls them an os. It's like Chazal will call them an os, or Rabbi Hirsch will call it a sign, or just it's a blatantly symbolic mitzvah. I mean, like tzitzis is clearly a symbol of something, right? Why why four corners? Why 8 strings or 6 strings according to Beis Hillel? We actually hold like Beis Shammai in that one. All those questions are, it clearly screams this is a symbolic mitzvah, but he doesn't discuss it. His 3 samples on the mitzvahs are called osos explicitly in the Torah. And what he showed was that each show a haYedidus, a closeness between Hashem and the Jewish people. So that while Shabbos is the Shabbos of creation, it's Osi Beini Uvein Bnei Israel. It's a sign of the
covenant.
No, I didn't pause for that. I paused because Moshe Yehuda and John were waiting for me, and Moshe Yehuda knocked on the door on the WhatsApp channel, so I heard the ding to know that they were waiting. Okay. Anyway, back to this. So right. So we had Shabbos is bris milah is an os of Hashem's love of Abraham and Abraham's children. Shabbos is you would think is a universal message, but the reason why we carry it is Osi Beini Uvein Bnei Israel. Sorry, Beini Uvein Bnei Israel Osi Liolam is the way we say it in Kiddush, right? It's a sign of Hashem's relationship with Bnei Israel and tefillin, where the word and Shabbos, we have all those songs with the word haYedidus in it, so we know that it's about haYedidus. Tefillin does not explicitly use the word haYedidus, unlike bris milah, where Avram, right, is Yedid, or Asher Kiddush Yedid Mi Beten. Tefillin doesn't refer to haYedidus, but the tefillin shel rosh is Hashem's name. V'ro kol amei haaretz ki shem Hashem nikra alecha. Hashem's name was called on us. So, so that is a haYedidus. Even though the word haYedidus isn't mentioned, there's a unity there between Hashem's presence and Bnei Israel. After he gave some examples of mitzvos Beinam Lamakom that show the haYedidus between the Jewish people and Hashem, he now starts haYedidus Beinenu. So this is really what I'd consider new material, even though we're going to chazer a little. Okay. Bris milah, Shabbos utfillin, im shloshes haosios shanu nimtzaim ba'olam haYedidus shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Bris milah, Shabbos, and tefillin are 3 signs that we find in the world of haYedidus of Hashem. And we live in a closeness to God that is both natural and constant.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh man, I was pointing to things all that time.
No, we were listening. Okay. That's better. Gotcha.
Okay. So I gotta move it over though so that I could see when Ariel comes. Okay. Bris milah, Shabbos, and tefillin are 3 osos that are nimtzaim b'olam haYedidus shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They are found in the world of haYedidus of Hashem. And we live in a closeness to God that is both natural and constant. It's more than obvious. The Olam haYedidus, mashra yachas haYedidosi, bein kol hamistofos b'tzilo. Right? It bestows a relationship of haYedidus among all who take refuge in its shadow. Ubmakom racha v'nichbad tosfos, but tosefos, but Torah had mitzvos beinam lachavero. And a broad and an important place is taken in the Torah by the mitzvos that are between people. Beinam lachavero. Uman flows hein mitzvos elu. And how wondrous are these mitzvos? Lo sirtzach, hachomer shabi yisurim. Do not murder, the most stringent of all prohibitions. Magia ad iser halvanas panim goes as far as not causing another to blanch. The azil sumka ba'asa chivura. Holecha odem. Sorry, he translates Aramaic into Hebrew, so I'm just going there to you. Holecha odem upon him, the red flees the face. Ubachi varon kamo etzel mace, and comes a pallor like by a dead person. And somebody who embarrasses another to make them blanch has no portion in Olam Haba. So you think lo sirtzach, like who needs a Torah to tell you don't murder? He shows you it's such a wondrous mitzvah that it goes as far as not embarrassing people. And it's not just, some empty comparison. We actually treat embarrassing another person so fundamental that a person could lose their afterlife. Lo sigzol. Kolel iser ligrom nezek. Don't steal includes causing damage. Vishol shalomi das gegazlan habit. Dummy. Also, lo sigzol, you would think don't steal is obvious, but borrowing without permission, without their knowledge, gegazlan dummy is like a thief. Ugdola Yisrael. I heard a ding, but I don't see. Okay. Ugdola Yisrael b'chol hatkufos chardu misu gezel b'mashahu. And the greats of Israel, the Gdolim of Bnei Yisrael, of Klal Yisrael, in every era, were afraid of the Isra Gezel, even of a pittance. Yoser Masher Kol Isra Acher b'Torah, more than any other prohibition in the Torah. Ma Rabim Chayuvei Tzedakah. Look how many are the obligations of tzedakah. V'tzeyu Badak b'Mishpachas Yisrael. Go look in the family of Israel. Keitzad Hamikaimos mitzvos elu hein b'monam v'hein b'gufan. How they do these mitzvos, whether with their money or with their body. B'achnasas orchim, b'achnasas kala. Whether it's taking in guests or taking in a bride. I mean, I know Hachnasa doesn't actually imply the same thing in both, but I like the way he reused the word. B'bikor cholim, visiting the sick, Uchtaka b'seiser, and giving money anonymously. Shanosein enu yodei elami nosein. The giver doesn't know to whom he's giving. V'hamakabel enu yodei elami mikabel, and the recipient doesn't know who he's getting it from. So there's no power imbalance, right? The receiver doesn't have to be embarrassed. The giver doesn't feel any more important because he has no idea who he would feel more important than. The whole Baal bias, mafresh hamaiser, and every homeowner separates his meiser, miskuraso, from his income. L'inyanei tzedakah, for matters of tzedakah. Lo gam maskores zeuma. I don't remember zeuma. I prepared it and I don't remember it. Anybody want to help? Anybody trying to help and talking into a mute box?
It means anger, but I don't understand the context.
No, that can't be.
Right.
Okay, well, we'll ask Mar Google. No, my mouse isn't paving. Great. Tiny.
Okay.
Scant. I think he's saying even if you don't make much. Like even the person who barely makes ends meet himself gives nicer to the others. Jordy, if you just say in English, Google forwards it to what's it called? Google forwards it to translate. But anyway, just a little side tangent. How would you translate the word stucco?
This is a trick question, right?
No.
The thing is, I mean, if you go, the problem is not getting into, let's say, Christian let's say undercurrents, as in when you think of charity, but it does not involve it. It's a matter of, how can I put it? You don't take pity on others when you do. You're not supposed to take pity as such when you do tzedakah.
I don't know. Maybe something like right behavior.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it has. I mean the whole root helps you. I mean it has to do with righteousness, with proper behavior. So
I was thinking of maybe fiscal justice. I like shocking my fellow from Jews.
that makes sense.
So-
It also, and I mean that's the way it works also in Islam. You know, it's like you give zakat, same thing.
It's the same word.
It is.
Yeah, it's a cognate word. Yeah.
So I thought you were going in that direction. You're basically saying you're making the world more just by giving somebody who needs it money.
Right, but also, I mean, what something Rosh Shimon says is Hashem isn't just giving the narrow sense of you money, but Hashem is giving you as a collective noun money. In other words, part of you're the way the wealth entered the world. It doesn't mean that you're supposed to be the final recipient of the wealth. Right? Giving you money could be Hashem's way of giving somebody else money. Sorry, not else. That's his whole point, is that everybody exists with their collective, with their collectives, with their communities, and therefore it's not just you getting the money, it's also the community getting the money. But so therefore he sees a justice in it. But I was going to say, living in a community where people tend to be politically right wing, not right is incorrect. I like playing with the idea of tzedakah as well. You can't say that the Torah really just supports a laissez-faire capitalist economy, because we consider sharing the wealth to be justice, not charity. Like you say the word all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I totally believe that, because tzedek and tzedakah are still different conjugations. But it's nice. I mean, it gives me a way to play with people's heads, so it's fun.
It seems to me two things. It seems to me that the idea of tzedakah related to tzedek has to do with the knowledge that Avad Hashem haaretz umelo like not all the stuff we think we have, we don't really own. It's not ours. It's just on loan to us for some purpose that we can sometimes figure out and sometimes not. And that tzedakah helps balance out the flow of resources more according to the way that Hashem has set things up and wants things to be. And then the other thing is it's something that I learned when I was in college, which was I went to a Jesuit college, was that the word charity comes from the Latin word caritas, which is itself descended from the word chesed.
Cool.
And so charity has a whole, so if you take it from an etymological standpoint, it is aiming at it's supposed to be an expression of love. In that, the overbounding
Uh-huh.
love concept of
Right.
chesed, as opposed to rebalancing the scales of the universe.
Hmm. I think people usually think of charity in terms of pity, um, which
Okay.
is why it has such wonderful connotation. But
Mhm.
I was leaning into Rav Shimon and this idea that the justice comes from the fact that that Hashem doesn't, by Hashem giving me wealth, Hashem's also giving us wealth.
Mhm.
Because I'm not saying this is compelling, but because Rav Wolbe is putting tzedakah down as one of the key examples of haYedidus within the community, I was using tzedakah not as I was trying to take tzedakah and put it in a bond to the other people terminology. That was where I was trying to go with the detour as how to define tzedakah. The tzedakah comes from my haYedidus with others. I mean, that Rav Wolbe is saying, right? And so I was trying to figure out how the word tzedakah would indicate it more than some other word for giving money. But that was the reason for the question. Ofayni litzadik b'Yisrael hi ha'achdus hanifla'a shel hamitzvos bein adam lamakom v'hamitzvos bein adam l'chavero. The comportment of a tzaddik in Israel is the unity, the wondrous unity between mitzvos bein adam lamakom and the mitzvos bein adam l'chavero. HaTorah Batzman, the Torah itself, kovas achdazu, establishes this unity. B'chol ha'parshio shebehem hi mitzvos, shebehen hi mitzuva osanu al mitzvos. Every parsha where you get lots of mitzvos, that's not a literal translation there, but where it commands us mitzvos, hi mimazeges inyane moadim v'karbanos im inyane tzedakah v'chesed. It pairs off, makes a couple between the issues of, let's say, holidays and karbanos with those of tzedakah and chesed. Lodia ki asr lahafri b'neihem, to let you know that it is wrong. It is prohibited to make distinctions between them. V'davka yidei kiyum kulam biyachad nase adam l'tzadik. Only by doing all of them together does a person become a tzaddik. V'nimshach kav zeh mitoras Yisrael derech neviim el chachmei Mishnah al Talmud. This line of reasoning flows from Moshe's Torah through the Nevi'im to the Chazal and the Mishnah and the Talmud. Misham Hala, and from there onward, El Rabbasin Rishonim, Karambam, Ramban, Ad Achronim, Chavetz Chaim, Chazon Ish, all the way through to the Achronim, like the Chavetz Chaim and the Chazon Ish. And now we're talking people that Rav Wolbe remembered being contemporaries. He's writing this in the 60s. Chazon Ish is not that long gone. Olam kulam ke'echad ovdei Hashem be'emes uvtara. All of them as one were worshipped Hashem, were servants of Hashem in truth and purity. V'yachad im zeh nosim ba'olim kol meducha v'kashayom. And together with that, they share the burden of everyone who is oppressed and has hard days. The Ozrim v'tomchim b'chiruf nefesh v'tznius nifla. and they help and they toil. They tomech is to. I mean, I was about to say toil, but that's like usually what we use for. Thank you. Bechiruf nefesh, with passion of the soul, harif sharpness, with nias nifla'a, and with incredible modesty, liyisamim ulamanos. Like that is a tzaddik. Tzaddik is somebody who davens like there's no like there's nothing else in the world, and then will give tzedakah and help out the downtrodden, without any, with a lot of passion and no interest in getting attention on themselves. Aniyim v'cholim, the poor and the sick, Kizehu, that's the splotch that I thought was a comma again. Kizehu Olam haYedidus, that is the world of Yedidus, Shabanza Torah on Yisrael, that the Torah created for Bnei Yisrael. So that's the next shlav, because remember, he's going step by step. He starts with relationship between Hashem and the Jewish people, then the relationship between Jewish people and each other, and then the next title is Hayachas L'Goyim, our relationship with the other nations.
Can I say something?
Sure, perfect time between topics.
It just reminds me when Rabbi David Feinstein was nifter about 2 years ago now, and he was maybe the preeminent Pesach in the world, certainly in the top 3, I think, at the time of his death. And I thought that the Levaya, they would speak about it. People almost, the Masfidim basically didn't mention it. They basically spent the whole Levaya talking about his chesed and the things he did for other people and the care he had for people and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I found that the people who knew him most, that was what they respected the most. But it's I don't think like Rabbi Wolbe saying, one doesn't go without the other, and it's always like a red flag when I see someone who's a big Torah scholar and doesn't act nicely to people, or vice versa. There's something wrong there.
Yeah, my experience with his father, with Rav Moshe, was that the psak he gave psak as a chesed.
What do you mean?
His focus wasn't on the Torah. His focus was on helping the person asking. He saw giving a psak as doing somebody a favor, like this guy's lost and I need to, and it affects his psak. I think that's why he's.
I remember correctly, he actually writes in Dibros, I think in Dibros Mesha somewhere, I could be wrong, about how someone who's a Pesach who's asked the psak is mechuyev, he's obligated to respond.
Oh, that's a Gemara.
Okay.
The Gemara tears into two people. The person who doesn't know how to paskin, but paskins anyway, and the person who can but doesn't. The Maral has a thing on it in Nesiva Torah, Perak Tezvav and Tezvayin, that Mayor Rabbi and I have argued about on Avoda every year for like a decade. Not this recent decade, but that's how I know exactly where it is.
Gotcha.
Okay, but that's the it's the same discussion where he doesn't like codes because he's afraid of the posek who relies on the code instead of understanding the topic. So it's all one discussion in Sefer Torah.
Gotcha.
But he quotes the Gemara. I just don't remember where the Gemara is.
I don't remember the one. Okay.
But Torah Einan Doeges Am Yisrael Bavad. The Torah is not only worried about Jews. The Torah Chayrot, other religions, Lahavdil Elef Havdalos. That's the general idiom, right? To make 1,000 distinctions. Yodos Rak Eita Achas Leven Adam. They only know one plan for a person. Im Eino Rotza Lios Miyarde Gehenam. If he doesn't want to go to hell, Umuchach Lekabel Osa Das Davka. They have to accept that religion specifically. V'diya gam das hadogeles ba'ava. Also, that religion that flies the flag of we're the religion of love. Ach ha'avazu nitna rak livnei osadas. The love only goes as far as people of those religion. V'acherim megia achzarius ve'avdon. To everybody else, you have I was going to say cruelty, but he may just mean his alienation and destruction. HaTorah eina doreshes klal. The Torah does not demand at all shekol b'nei olam yisyahadu, that everybody become Jewish. So, and that's, by the way, still a difference after Vatican II, Jordy. Right? Even after Vatican II, they still believe you're better off being one of them. I mean, he made whatever. He kovas sheva mitzvos yisodios. It establishes the Torah. The Torah establishes 7 fundamental mitzvos. Kol makabel sheva mitzvos and nizar la'asosan. Anybody who accepts the 7 mitzvos and is careful to keep them, harei zeh mechasidei umas ha'olam. They are among the righteous of the nations of the world. V'yesh lo chelek l'olam haba, and has a place in the world to come. That's from the Rambam. Rambam mevar b'shnei parakim. Rambam then spends the next, two chapters. So that's the end of Perek Ches. Perek Tes and Perek Yud of Hilchos Malachim are spent describing the mitzvos she'agoyim chayavim l'kayim, the mitzvos the other nations have to observe. Olam haYedidus shel Torah, in the world of affection of the Torah, nikva makom nichba gam lenachri bal emuna belokim, also for the monotheistic non-Jew, hashomer mishpat, who keeps justice, v'chai chaye mishpacha takinim, and lives a healthy and normal family life. Nizar me avodah zara, stays away from idolatry, retzach, murder, gezel, theft, v'achilas ever menachai, and eating from live animals, which I was pleasantly surprised to learn does not include crabs. Ever menachai is only mammals. No, because I was wondering, eating crab claws is a common thing. So, and they harvest them from live crabs. It turns out that's not an Ever menachai issue. In any case, you see the Torah has a plan for all of humanity, and that plan does not mean everybody will be a Jew someday. Misbehaving mouse. Okay. Mosanu tzivu Chazal, and Chazal commanded us. We support the poor of the idolatrous nations, because those are the ways of peace. Rama Messiah is Perak done b'mitzvos b'nei Noach, and that section about mitzvos b'nei Noach that we just mentioned, the Rambam has, he concludes, "V'chein yirali shenoagim im geri toshav," that we practice with geri toshav shelo iskairu. Now he's explaining geri toshav is not a convert. Rakiblu alatzmam lachanel me'avodah zara. They're just non-Jews who agree not to worship idols. B'derech eretz, b'gemilas chasadim ki Yisrael. We're supposed to show them same derech eretz and give them the same chesed as a Jew. Sharei anu mitzuvim lachiosam. We are commanded to give them life. That's not the right expression, but that's literal. Shenemar, so what would it be? Mitzvim to aid their lives. Shenemar leger asher misharecha titnenu va'achla. To the stranger who lives among your gates, you shall give it, and they will eat. Vafilu akum, even idolaters. Tzivur Chachamim, so that was Gertosha, the person who agreed to worship, to be monotheist. Even in Akum, Chazal command us Lavaker Choleim, to visit their sick, Vilikvor Meseihem, and to bury their dead, Ulafarnes Aniyehem, and to support their poor, Bichlal Aniyeh Yisrael, just among the poor of Israel, B'mnei Darchei Shalom, because of Darchei Shalom. So when I was a kid, how were you taught, Moshe Yehuda? How were you taught when you were a kid? I'm sorry for singling you out, but you're the only one I know who was taught Torah when you were 6 and 7. What was Darchei Shalom when you were a kid?
I don't think Dark Shalom existed when I was a kid. Honestly.
Oh no, I was told it's basically the same thing as Mishum Eva, to avoid hatred. Darchei Shalom is, it's nice. You should be polite. It's, you want to keep the peace with your neighbors. You don't want to tick them off. You don't want the anti-Semites to wake up. Nothing like that.
I don't remember Dr. Shalom. Ava, I remember, but not when I was 6 or 7, just to be fair.
Yeah, that's true.
But I don't remember a distinction between Dr. Shalom and Ava, so it's very interesting that you should say that. I'm not.
Right. No, I mean, I grew up thinking that they were just one was phrased in the negative and one was phrased in the positive. Don't do something because it'll cause hatred. Do something else because it'll cause peace. And that was the only difference, right? Like one was to explain why you don't do things, and the other was to explain why you do things, right? But the Rambam here, and he repeats the Rambam. The Rambam gives a totally different explanation. I first saw this from Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, but here Rav Wolbe said it first. Hare Nemar, or at least before the book from Rav Aaron Lichtenstein was published. I don't really know who said it first, but anyway, Hare Nemar Tov Hashem Lakol Brachamav Al Kol Ma'asav. Why should we act with non-Jews with Darchei Shalom? Because it says Tov Hashem Lakol, Hashem is good to all. Brachamav, and his compassion is on all that he made, everything that he made. V'nemar, and it also says about the Torah, Dracheha Darchei Noam, its paths are paths of pleasantness. Shalom, and all its little trails are peace. So, contrary to what I was told as a kid, the Rambam is clearly saying, this is not some chiddush, it's just straight out what the Rambam is saying. Darchei Shalom is imitating God. Right? Why do we give them tzedakah and visit their sick, even the idolaters? Just as when we visit when we give tzedakah to the Jewish poor and the sick Jew, because Tov Hashem L'Kol. That's what Darchei Shalom is. God is good to everybody. Darchei Shalom is the derachim of the peaceful one. That's why you'll notice the conceit. If you ever see me writing online, I always write Darchei Shalom with a capital S. Because it appears to be, at least from this Rambam, the ways of the peaceful one, not just, the way of being peaceful.
You mean the kinui of Shalom being also to say in a bathroom because it's like Hashem's name?
Yes, because the Rambam is saying Darchei Shalom is acting, right? It is Hashem's Tov L'Kol and Rachmav. Hashem's Tov and Rachamim is Darchei Shalom. So that was you don't need to go that far for Darchei Shalom to be imitating Hashem, but I put in the capital S and hope that, one time in 20, somebody will ask me why I capitalized the S, and I could discuss the fact that it's not about keeping peace with your borderline anti-Semitic neighbors. Yeshnam Havdalim, there are distinctions, Mahusiyim, Bein Ha'amim. There is differences in substance. Mahus is from the word ma, what. They have different whatnesses. There's differences in substance between the nations. Vein lahosif lihit mazguma lihis mazugusam itanu levatel hatchumim beinenu uveinam. And we don't have to overdo the mixing with us and to destroy the limits between us and them. I think what he's advocating here is for a glorious mosaic and not a melting pot. Right? We should have peaceful relations with them, but we shouldn't go so far as to blend into one and lose what it means to be Jewish and lose what, and the world loses what it means to be a Pole, and everybody has their little tile in the mosaic. Aval kulam nichlalim ba'olam haYedidus shel Torah, but all are included in the world of affection of the Torah. V'lo nichnas achshav l'sugya hanifla'ah shel hageros. We're not going to get now into the wondrous topic of conversion. V'dai lanu lahazkir. It's enough just to remember ki kayemes the Torah gam efsharizos. The Torah does also have this possibility. Ki goy harotza be'emes lihistabek be'emunasenu. If a guy chooses to attach himself to our religion, yachol lehefach liyehudi, could turn himself into a Jew. Mamash al yidei milah. That's pretty male centric there, but yes, tefillah, the kabbalas, emunas haTorah, through milah, tefillah in the mikvah, and accepting the faith of the Torah, mitzvosei be'emes. So accepting the faith and the mitzvahs of the Torah in truth. Harei haTorah einu mitipa matifa l'mission. The Torah is not out to have missionaries. Ela olam haYedidus pasuach l'chol mi sherotza listapeach halav be'emes. We don't need to attract people to us, but if somebody wants to, we're open. So the door is open because Olam haYedidus means that we don't put up a line. But Olam haYedidus also doesn't mean that we erase the line between, the me and the other. One might even say, Jordy, between I and thou. Ich and du. You missed that, Moshe. You missed it. Jordy picked up a first edition copy, which is not focusing on on his camera very well, but that was the
shape.
yeah. No, he had showed it to me before everybody else joined and before I recorded. That was the reason for that detour. Okay, so that is what he says about the relationship with non-Jews. So it's not as unified as a relationship with other Jews. And he says, or I said, he said, but I teased it out and therefore made a point of it. So I don't know how important it was to him, but that part of the reason for the lack of yachas is so that we need the variety, right? That if all of humanity were as connected as Jews were with each other, we would lose the cultural variation that the world needs. So the door is open for conversion, but the world needs good Poles, the world needs good Russians, the world needs good Americans, might even need good Democrats. That was a joke. Okay, the world needs a variety of different kinds of people. Be very interesting to analyze the Bereshis, to analyze the story of Migdal Bavel from the perspective of it being a story about the dangers of not having variety. Right, the difference between unity and oneness, or unity and identity. But in any case, so that's the next stage outward. And then he he goes the last stage outward to living things and plants. Notice he does not talk about, he doesn't have a chapter on our connection to inanimate objects. But his last little section is Baalei Chaim and Tzmeichem, yes?
Do we have a connection to inanimate objects?
I think so, and I think that's exactly why he didn't go there. I think in the 1960s, he already saw that we were a little consumer oriented and did not want to play up our responsibility to objects. But no, I mean, kibitzing aside, my feeling is that our responsibility to objects is our responsibility to the other uses the objects could have had, and not the objects in and of itself. In other words, like if you look at let's say Baltashchis, right? A lot of ecology talk revolves around the mitzvah of Baltashchis.
It might
But
be a responsibility towards ourselves.
But Baltashchis is really a responsibility toward the people who could have used the tree. It's not a responsibility toward the tree.
Right, but I'm saying it might be ourselves, not to other people.
Uh-huh. Well, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
Menachem
it's,
Katanim by Yaakov Avinu.
yeah,
Whose
I mean-
responsibility? Who was that for? That was for himself.
Yeah, not to,
Right.
not to take us too far afield, but the Washington Post has been having some exposés on horrific things accompanying deforestation in the Amazon. People, of course, want to better their lives and create new communities and push into the forest, but it also involves a lot of murder and corruption, and especially dispossessing a lot of the indigenous people there. And you know, it's really heartbreaking. But again, I don't know what we could do. As I said a few times ago, even if the Moetzet Gedolei Torah would denounce it, what good would it do? I mean, I suppose it's good the Washington Post is having front page exposés of what's going on, with the sheer amount of injustice and murder and corruption in the Amazon, beyond the ecological stuff, is really disheartening.
but
What does
Right,
the
but-
Torah say, about that?
well, that's what I was saying. I think the Torah phrases our obligation not to ruin the planet as really an obligation not to ruin the planet the next generation needs, and not the planet.
Well,
Like,
yeah,
I really think it's a responsibility toward other people. Might be a responsibility toward animals and plants if I ever read the next 3 paragraphs, but it's definitely a. I mean, he mentions Baltashchis in the paragraph. I kind of jumped the
Yeah.
gun. But I always saw Baltashchis as, you're not going to destroy the fruit bearing tree when you could have destroyed the barren tree, because
Mhm.
people need fruit. And as much as you decide that people can even be you, but in any case, it revolves around things of higher order than a plant. But let's see what he says instead of what Micha says.
I just want to say, as a local representative of Aguda in this thing, you're not likely to see that proclamation.
No, that was kind of our conclusion
Of
when he
course,
raised it last
I
time.
know
Just
that.
saying.
Yeah.
I know that. I know that. I just-
Gamaya, sorry.
It's just, if Torah is relevant to everything, you just, wonder what you can do in the face of all that.
So the Aguda does take positions on, not the Mayetzes, but the Aguda does take positions on certain things that are the greater world, but usually only if it's related to religion.
hear.
Somebody called the Aguda, emailed us, and was complaining that we weren't objecting against a bill that would mandate COVID vaccines. And I explained to her, and I didn't. I'm not asking anyone what they believe. I will just tell you, as a matter of experience, that anyone who is anti-vax cannot bear any other view, and therefore it's not my place to argue with them. But I explained to her that we don't comment on medical things. The only reason why we would comment on something like that would be because if it didn't make a religious exemption, then it's a religious freedom issue. So
Well, the other time you commented on it was when synagogues didn't even know how to start writing their own guidelines.
yes, we did do that. So there are exceptions, but we didn't make a medical. I mean, it was pretty accepted then that COVID was a big deal.
Yeah.
Right. So, and we also really I think we're the first, maybe the second Orthodox organization, not besides that Bergen County one, that said anything publicly about COVID. So
Yeah.
anyway, okay,
Right.
that's going far afield, like Ariel said.
Okay. So let's get back to living things and plants. Right. Our flora and fauna. Fauna and flora in the order he gave it. Gama yachas shel Torah el bali chayim mutzba b'chosem shel yedidus. Even our relationship to other living things is stamped mapeya, to make a sign, a seal. In a signet ring, it's stamped with a stamp of Yedidus. Tsar Bali Chaim Doraisa. Gemara in Bava Metzia, Rambam also concludes that causing pain to living things is a Doraisa prohibition. Kalfei Kol Davar Sheba Olam. With regard to everything in the world, Gam im Ein Bo Ruach Chaim, even inanimate objects. We shouldn't be destroying them for nothing. So you see, when he talks about has no living spirit, he doesn't mean a rock. He means plants, because his example is don't destroy a tree. I mean, this is lo tashchis, it's etza. The lo tashchis is the bal tashchis everybody talks about. Klalo shel davar, al tihi buzz l'chol adam, al tihi maflig l'chol davar. Right? Don't embarrass anyone. Don't put anything down. She'ein l'cha adam she'ein lo sha'a. There's no person who doesn't have their time to shine. Ve'ein l'cha davar she'ein lo makom, and there's nothing that doesn't have its appropriate place. So this is, by the way, the same Mishnah Navos that he quoted that he later quotes in the magazine article, in the journal article about insanity. He says, why do we have a world of Yedidus? Because everything was created by the Ribbono Shel Olam, and therefore you know that it has a purpose and importance. Because otherwise Hashem wouldn't have created it. Even insanity, and tells the whole story of David HaMelech. But it's the same, he's using the same Mishnah in Avos. So everything has value to creation, right? Every person has their time, every object has its place. So you shouldn't just be chucking things out. Zoe B'suras haYedidus shel Toras el Chai. This is the message of Yedidus, of the Torah of the living God, or the God of life. Hamakifa Bria Ubara, which surrounds the created and the creator. Yisrael v'umos, Israel and the other nations. Balchayvit sameach adama, animals and plants. Bamashchisa es kol yachasenu el krivas das. Vahamashtisa, not mashchisa. Those are opposites. Es kol yachasenu el krivas das baracha kalpe kol davar shaba olam. So the Torah of Hashem's Torah, right? Shtisa. Shoseis. What?
I don't know what that means. Shoseis makes sense.
Yes, but it doesn't tell you what it is. Apparently, Ba'anglit would have worked. That didn't work.
Isn't it
Oh,
like
built upon. Built upon, according to the first hit. Is built upon our relationship. The whole Hashem's Torah is built upon a relationship between warm thoughts, close thoughts, right, and ha'aracha and arrangement. Kalpei kol davar ba'olam. So
respect or relationship?
thank you. Arrangement, by the way, has the same shorish because everything has its place. It is a term of relationship, but yes, Klapei kol davar sheba'olam. So that's his Olam haYedidus. Now he's going to talk about the absence of Yedidus, but Lishita, so the entire basis of the Torah is to value that which God created and to have ever widening circles of unity with Hashem, with the Jewish people, with other people, and with other living things.
Wow, I had no idea Rav Wolbe addressed these things.
So, yeah, well, whatever. There's a lot about the way Yiddishkeit is taught that I would do differently. So, but you all know that, so that's why I just laughed to myself. Me'ata, from now, Hapirid ba'olam, division in the world. Me'ata lo nuchal yisaleim od mikol harichuk hapirid ashorim ba'olam. So at this point, we can't hide any longer from all of the distancing and separation which rule in this world. B'nikud gamor la'olam haYedidus, in total opposition to the world of Yedidus that we're trying to build. Ma makor hasina hamamleya kol chalala shel hachevra hanoshit. What is this hatred that fills every vacuum in the human community? Bevadai lo asham rak irgun lekaveh shel hachevra. It is obviously not as what?
I think this is not something that only a small bad luck or you hit bad group of humanity is guilty of. It's all over the place.
Imad kol hanisyonos liyitzer litzur tanaim l'chayim yoser meusharim lo itzlichu levayer es hanega harichuk v'apirud. Everything that we do or to find the conditions of a better life, a wealthier life. Well, that's with an ayin. Okay, let's just go with better life. They never succeeded to touch the subject of distance and separation. I don't know that that's true, that all the self-help books that try to depict how to get a better life, none of them discuss distancing, but this is what he says. Aleinu likvoa, we have to establish ba'adam atzmo mekanen koach. In a person, there dwells a force or a potential, hahofech es olam haYedidus, which flips over, which is the opposite of the world of Yedidus. The moked shel zarus v'richuk hazorea pirud bein hachaverim v'sin'a bein achim koach shel zarut. Right, this is where we know already where he's going. Right, the idea of a zar is he's saying is built into the person, right? And it draws a person to the bonfire of, sorry, that's a bad pun, of estrangement and distancing. It plants the seeds of separation between friends and hatred between brothers, and this is the power of zarut, alienation. Now he's quoting Gemara Shabbos. Hamikra begada v'chamaso, somebody who tears their clothing in anger. V'mishaber kela v'chamaso, or smashes his utensil in his anger. You know, the person who gets angry and throws their mug across the room and smashes it on the wall. V'mafazer me'osa b'chamaso, or wastes money in his anger. Yehei beinecha koved avodah zarah, you should view them as though they are idolaters. Shekach umnaso shel yitzara, because that's the way the yitzara works. Hayom omer lo asei kach. Today do this thing. Ulamachar omer lo asei kach. Tomorrow it says do the other thing. Ad she'omer lo avodah zarah, until it gets to the point where it tells you go worship something else. And the person goes and worships it. Amar Avavin, Ma Kara. What is the pasuk for this idea? Lo becha ilzar. You shouldn't have within you. I'm being very careful in translating that very literally. Don't have within you a foreign god. Lo sishtachavel el nechar, and don't bow down to a strange god. Ezehu elzar sheish begufo shel adam. What is the strange god which is in a person's body? Have a omer zeh yetzahara. It's the yetzahara. So notice the word zar here, because Rabbi Wolbe will. He's defining the yetzahara as the god of estrangement that lives within a person. Right? If haYedidus is the goal of the Torah, then the goal of the yetzahara is zarus. I thought that was kind of pretty, but I mean, elegant, not pretty. We're talking about the Yitzhara. Actually, the Yitzhara does deal in pretty, because that's how you package stuff. Kachu darkam shel Chazal. This is the way of Chazal. Lachasof kochos adirim, va'af sodos ne'lamim. Oh, this is not going well for me. B'masim ktanim, I was going to say inter, but that's not the right word. And it's not to bury, it's to...
Isn't it to uncover?
No, I thought it was to cover. What they're doing is they're putting these powerful forces and these hidden secrets into small actions. Imbue would be better than inter, at least. I see Moshe Yehuda turned his head. He's checking with a dictionary.
I checked chasef zerei kachecha, means uncover your holy arm. It's uncover.
Yeah, but that doesn't. Okay, fine. I had actually thought what we were dealing with was the opposite, not finding
Reveal.
right. Chasef zerei kachecha, the curve keta Yeshua. I mean, I know that meaning. I just thought here we were dealing with the opposite, like bleed vogue.
But it sounds like he's saying that by a little tiny thing, you can
Right, you uncover the big the big right. You uncover these huge potentials. Whereas I was thinking they take these huge potentials and they turn them into small exercises. I read the sentence backwards. That's all.
It's the same meaning either way. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. I just because I had the wrong definition of the word, the whole sentence was read wrong. But those are Shargilu Lanu. And this is what they reveal to us, which obviously makes more sense now. When a person's anger brings them to tear, lishbor, to break, l'fazer, and to shatter. Siman hu shesholei bo koach shel zarus. That is a sign that the power of alienation is in charge of him. Be'im kach, no heges zarus zu, kalfei kavatzim. And if this is the way Zarus is acting toward objects, vadai hu shehi chodedes gam l'soch hayachasim bein b'nei adam, then it is certainly, right, inserting itself in the relationships between people. Krirus, coldness, is almas me'azulas, hiding from the other. Lo ichpatius, it doesn't matter. Was it apathy?
Apathy.
Tokfanosa omeres ani ve'afsi od. Tofas you do osheim. Oh, sorry, that's its own thought. I and nothing more. This is the mindset. I and nothing more. Tofas you do osheim. Tofaos you do osheim. Mechana mishutaf lahen zarus. These are well-known tofaos. These are well-known approaches. They're well-known attitudes, and there's a nickname for them. We call them zarus, alienation. Mamar Chazal Hanal, Medaber al Kaas. The Mamar Chazal that we saw earlier, back up on the top of the screen, that speaks about anger. Akas eino hasiba yichida l'zarus. Anger isn't the only reason for alienation. Shlomo Melech marchiv es Yiriya v'omer. So Shlomo Melech unfurls the page and says, "L'tava yivakesh nifrad." The person who wants desire, who wants physical desires, nifrad is separate. Mikol toshia iskalea. From all. My memory is really shot. This is what happens when I prepare 2 days ahead instead of the morning of. Anybody want to look up Mishlei Yud Ches and help me?
I'm looking up. I mean, it means from all salvation, it'll be distance, but I'm not sure what that means. What the actual word means. Looking it up.
Mm-hmm.
Rashi says, someone who is separate from Hashem, who does not watch his mitzvahs, keep the mitzvahs because of the taivas, the desires of his heart and his yetzer hara. The end will be that between wise people, his shame will be revealed.
So Toshia is shame. It's not Toshia with an ayin. That was, I think, the mistake.
Toshia from the language of old, like Yashish.
Or Bnei Seva.
Or there's no vase here.
Oh, okay. Well, my Hebrew is so good, I thought it was with a vav.
Let me check the mitzvah this 1 second. This is courtesy of Sefaria, by the way. So this seems to translate Tashia as Torah.
Translate or explain.
Yeah. He's trying to this translates Tashia as the Torah. Like, so among Torah scholars, he'll be revealed, and you translate Yiskala as if it was with a hey, and he says that his shame will be revealed amongst the great people, because I guess
That's the same direction Rashi took it in.
what?
That is also the same direction Rashi took it in.
Oh, right. This is what Joshua said. In Chachamim, yeah. Okay, so the people who learn the Torah, yeah. Yep, I see what you're saying.
Okay.
This is what the Mishnah says. Kinavatayva covered with Sina Sadam and Elam. The Taiva part.
Which is, yeah. I think that's very relevant. I mean, I was gonna wait for the end, but yes, I think he is saying that that the Motzi. I mean, Motzinas Adam in Olam. I believe that he is identifying with Olam haYedidus.
The opposite, the Zara. Oh, you see,
Yotziyim min Olam haYedidus.
Right, I understand what you're saying, and that's these are all the nth degree of Zaras of the opposite of Yedidus.
Well, I don't know the nth degree. I think causes. Like a person starts by chasing, the next piece of whatever, the next $1 million, and ends up in Zaros. I don't know. I mean,
is it the cause or the effect? I don't know.
Well, remember the Chazal, right? A person starts off listening to the Torah about anger,
Right.
and ends up at.
Right. Okay. Fair point.
But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Meitanu einamakir es hamavakesh taiva. Who doesn't know the glutton, the person who wants his taivas? Asher bikvosel ba davka pirud, that in the end ends up specifically isolated. The imhu korea kore latavaso ava, and if he calls his taiva love, matadir hamachazaki ava hofechas l'sina. How often do we see that this love turns into hatred? I don't know what he's talking about there. See, my first instinct and the easy read of this would be the person who lusts for their partner, the marriage doesn't last and it ends up being sinna. Like if the marriage is built on taiva rather than love, then it ends up going from ava to sinna. But if he calls his taiva love, but there's another thing going on also, because people love a good piece of cheesecake. So I didn't really know which if he calls his taiva love he was talking about. And I don't know if you have to choose between them anyway. I mean, I think he'd agree with either statement. I just don't know which one he made here. Hare koach hazaros alul lislabesh gam b'taiva. The power of zaros is wont to dress itself also as taiva, also in taiva. Av shehi nir is lechora is karvus el hazulas. Even when taiva looks like you're getting close to the other, it's still zaros dressed up in zulas.
It's very interesting.
As I said, the smoother read is that he's talking about somebody who lusts for their partner and confuses that self-love of I love cheesecake with loving his wife.
I wonder how old was Rabbi Wolbe when he wrote this?
We could sort of figure it out if you look up how old he was in 2000 whatever when he passed away and subtract 40.
Sure. Well, 42. Well, then it's still a young guy.
33. Let's say 35.
Okay.
Yeah, no, he couldn't have been that old.
He died in 2005 and he was 91.
Okay, so 91
Minus 40.
minus 105 minus, let's say, 69.
Just not the words of
Yeah, he was
philosophy.
55 years old.
You know,
So it was
It's not
after the
that young.
Shoah?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not that young. It makes me kind of more settled with my age, which is still past 55, but not that much. Yeah, because 67 to 2005 sounds like a long time. So
Yeah.
I felt a little
Oh.
reprieve there.
We're all still young here. Don't worry about that.
Uh
I had great regrets. I went back to Chappelle's in 01 for a Yarchei Kala and Tefillah, and they were supposed to have Rav Wolbe, but he was not well enough.
Oh, too bad.
uh-huh.
So I missed actually being Zocha to hear from him in person. But, so
In-
it's interesting that he seems to have that positive view of humanity after the Shoah.
I don't really see his positive view of humanity here.
I mean, the earlier, the non-demonization of non-Jews.
All I see here is a description of what a person can be and should be. I don't really hear an opinion of how close he thinks humanity is to it. Although he does say a lot about how Jews are all Balei Tzedakah, and as I pointed out last week, he doesn't say religious Jews. Like, he's making a point of including his audience when he says that. But I don't see him saying that humanity as a whole is close to this or far. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a pessimist on humanity. I just don't see an opinion. His opinion is that we're capable of it, or the Torah demands it of us, or the Sheva Mitzvahs demand it of us, depending on who you're talking about. Im kacho Allah b'gar Allah shel taiva. Im kacha Allah b'gar Allah shel taiva. If this is what happens with the lot, with the fate of taiva, because shkein shekol mida acheres alula lahavi lidei purud v'zaros bein adam l'chavero. So you can understand how every midah has a potential to bring separation and alienation between people. Bein ish ishto, between a husband and a wife. Bein chugim, miflagot. These are different. Unions of people in a chug is smaller than a miflag. Medinot, nations, v'gushim, and blocks. I think here he means blocks of nations, not gushim like Gush Etzion and Gush Katif. Different, broader use of the word. He's going outward, right? He's going from individuals to groups of to cliques, to communities, to nations, to treaty group, to NATO. I mean, like that kind of gush. Ihavana, with not trying to understand each other, not understanding each other. Iamon, not trusting each other, no faith. Hischarus, milchama. Hema shlavim ayumim bihispatchut hayachasim b'kivon hazarot. These are the or ayumim. I'll translate awful, but I mean that as a pun. Hispachtus hayachasim. The we had hispachtus earlier, and I had it. Now I can't. The the devolution of relationships in the direction of alienation. So it starts, friends lose faith in friends, nations lose faith in nations. Next thing you know, you have World War III. God forbid. By the way, my favorite argument for Zionism is if World War II was not Milchemet Gog uMagog, I couldn't handle it. It's not a serious argument. And I
Not
can't
an
call
argument that anyone can argue with.
but it's just a scary thought that Milchemes Gog Magog would be something worse. So from alienation, now he goes to cruelty, because you know that he considers that the next, the same path. Umehazarus la'achzarius, which remember is new to the reader here because the other essay wasn't written yet. From alienation, you get to cruelty, only alienated, pure alienation. How you know what? I can't start this. It's 9:29, and this is not a night that I could run late because my meetings this week. So we'll stop here and we'll do Achzarius. Sorry, we will study Achzarius. We will not do Achzarius. We will study Achzarius, which he actually takes in the opposite direction. And in other words, he starts with people and ends with God. And we'll look at it next week.